Hey, what is up, disc golfers? Today on Iceberg TV, we have another installment of the fan favorite YouTube series, Weird Stuff Wednesdays. I have some of the weirdest discs that I've ever received from anyone here. This was a company that never fully came into production, but they offered me a small salary, my own signature discs. They were going to allow me to design my own signature disc, and all of this never happened. And the only discs I ever got from them were these four plus two other discs that I've since then either lost or given away. We have the first prototype run of the company that never was, Orbital Discs. And what we have here today is the Core putter, which is actually a pretty decent putter, not terrible, but the blend was like pure just flop. So a little too floppy for my taste, but not a terrible mold. We've got the Ignition, which feels kind of like an 8-speed Firebird. And one of my favorite things about the Orbital discs is it actually says PDGA approved on it. So they they don't even have PDGA approved spelled right on them. And it kind of just says the name of the mold on the back as well. And then we have two high-speed drivers here. We have the Viper Wolf, also featuring the world famous approved stamp. And then we have their most coveted mold, the Deranged Squirrel. First run, obviously PDGA approved. So we'll give all these guys a throw today. Orbital discs, they were produced by Daredevil Discs, which they've been making Ultimate discs for forever. When I was playing Ultimate in high school and college, those were my preferred Ultimate discs of choice, were the Daredevil discs from Canada. So originally, I had really high hopes that this was actually going to work out. Unfortunately, it never did. But at least I have some items to remember that time period. Let's throw the Core putter, give it a little fan grip. That was always just like a nice, super dead straight putter. Pretty easy to throw. Nothing too crazy going on there. This Ignition was also pretty good. Anytime it's just like an overstable 8 or 9 speed, as long as it's really stable, I typically tend to enjoy it. So it's got a nice forward push. Honestly, probably just flies like maybe an S-line, FD3, that type of slot. And then we've got the Viper Wolf, which is like stupid fast. These must be like 13.5 speed, 14 speed drivers. They are some of the widest drivers I've ever felt. Oh! I just ripped that so high up into the tree that I'm never going to see that again. So now we got the Deranged Squirrel left. And this is what happens with Orbital discs. You just kind of lose them. The Deranged Squirrel just went so far. All right, let's go gather everything up, the 3 discs we have left, and we'll throw them a few more times. It's a beautiful day out here today. Perfect day to throw some Orbital discs. And I believe these are still PDGA approved as far as I'm concerned because, well, they're PDGA approved. They were approved back in the day. I'm assuming they don't get unapproved just because the company goes out of business. This is the Core putter, fan grip, dead straight. And because it's kind of so like sticky and flexible, it just wants to die. Like when it hits the ground, that thing's never going to skip. It just kind of like stops and stays, which is kind of nice. The Ignition. Obviously nice and stable. Goes pretty far. The Viper Wolf, or whatever that one I threw, is in the tree up there. So all we have left is the Deranged Squirrel. This seemed really flippy, so let's give it a little Heisey flip. Okay. That didn't flip at nearly as much as I thought it would. All right, we'll throw them back a few more times. Another interesting thing about Orbital was when they were going to come out with a new mold, they would let the community name the disc. So that's how they wound up with names like deranged squirrel. Someone came up with that name for the new mold, and then they let the community vote on it. And if that name won, ideally during the production run, you would have a proper stamp, the name that won the competition, and then they would put the person's name who came up with the name of that mold. So that was kind of a fun concept. It was like a community-driven sort of thing. And I think it had a lot of potential, but it was just so disorganized. Seemed like there may not have been enough financing behind the whole project. I would definitely like to interview someone from Daredevil Discs if they know any more information about the rise and fall of orbital discs, because I think there were some good ideas here. The molds and the plastic wasn't great, but I think if they had a little bit more guidance with those things, they might have been able to come out with, you know, better products, better stamping, properly spelled stamps, amongst many more things. This core is flying so predictable. I actually really like this right now. Just, I mean, put it on the line and that thing goes. I wish it wasn't quite so floppy. And we've got the ignition. I think this thing can handle about as much Annie as I can put on it. That was not Annie. But this is why you guys are here. You guys are here for the deranged squirrel. We all know that. All right, deranged squirrel. Come on, get pumped up. Whoa! That might have skipped off the bridge and went in the water. We'll have to go follow up on the deranged squirrel. That thing coming back this way didn't flip at all. Going back the other way, not super windy, just nose down to oblivion. We'll have to go see if that one's gone too. There was a small kind of fan community with orbital discs, and they did try to do a rebrand. I'm not sure where that is exactly at, but apparently the story that's been being circulated in regards to the fall of orbital discs, they claim that MVP, so the MVP Disc Sports that we all know and love, sent Orbital a cease and desist letter because they had the name Orbital Discs, and MVP has a mold called the Orbital. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I feel like MVP at this stage of the game has bigger fish to fry. So I'd be curious to get, you know, the proper facts on that as well. But the whole story was really interesting, you know, from inception to being community-based to getting the first prototypes out and then getting a cease and desist letter and then just trying to rebrand, and then I haven't heard anything since. All right, we got lucky. We hit this tree right here, but just beyond there is, it looks pretty low right now, but there's usually some pretty disgusting water down there that I would not want to go into. I lost a purple patent pending wave in here the other day as well, so maybe I'll be able to find that too. All right, we'll throw everything one last time and then we'll wrap up the video. Core putter, then ignition, and then one last deranged. I mean, that thing is nice. They could have really gone somewhere with the core. The core is a solid mold. And this ignition here, the mold is good, but the plastic is horrible. This M plastic is so slippery, I feel like I just can't get a grip on this thing. The mold is good, but this plastic blend is trash. But it just feels like it slips out of your hand. And then we have the, like, this is M plastic, but it's like very obviously completely different. It's way flexier, not see-through, totally different blend. All right, come on, I want to get one good deranged throw. This might be the last time I ever throw this disc. There it is. It's about as good as I can possibly throw that disc. They had one mold that was really good called the Hyroken, and it was also in M plastic, but it was yellow, and it felt like Innova Champion Edition plastic. That thing was absolutely incredible, and for me, it flew and felt similar to a zone, but for me, actually slightly better. When my dad visited me just a month or so ago, he was throwing that Hyrokin at Kilbourne, Eastway, all the courses in Charlotte, and he wanted to bring that disc back home to Australia with him because he liked that disc so much. So maybe they would have had more success early on as like a putter only brand, similar to like an EV7, because between the Core and the Hyrokin, they had two pro level putters, in my opinion. And I think as we see more companies popping up, I think the business model of being putter only, mid-range only, driver only, whatever the case may be, I think we'll start seeing more and more of that. We have more players on tour that are sponsored by, Infinite, Clash, and Thought Space, and like a multitude of different brands. I think it makes a lot of sense, if a player's sponsored by an Innova or a Discraft. I think down the road, when disc golfers, have the capacity of making more money, I wouldn't be surprised if they could be signed by Innova, but then they just putt with EV7 and they're also sponsored by EV7. I know it's not really the landscape of things at this current juncture, but I definitely see that as being something that could possibly happen down the road. But I think this company, Orbital, they just came out with too much all at once, and most of it was trash. But the two putters were really solid pro level discs, and nobody except me and a few other people ever got to actually throw them. Anyway, that's the story of Orbital discs and my experience with them. If they didn't have approved spelled wrong, I probably would have donated them to be recycled at this point, or given them away, or found someone who liked these Orbital discs and sent them out to them. But simply because PDGA approved is misspelled, I just feel like that is a funny thing for me to pull out and laugh about once in a while. So it's something that'll sit in my collection, and yeah, I'm sure I'll give them away at some point. But anyway, you guys are watching Iceberg TV. Weird Stuff Wednesday in the books. I'll see you in the next one, and take care.